Hello subscribers and non-subscribers, welcome back to ChäoS. Let's go ahead and load up. And okay, sorry about that. I wanted to check and make sure that that this was actually being recorded properly. So yep, go ahead and load this. No idea why the hell that's over there. But so you do know of it. Okay, I get the feeling that Catalyst Control Center is probably not actually scaling the window to the actual 800 by 600 window that it's supposed to be, and is actually doing it in 1920 by 1080, which is thus screwing up the text a bit by having it repeat a little bit over on the right side. But meh, whatever. And I should actually probably start my timer. But yeah, okay.
知ってるに決まってる。知らないなんて言わせない。知ってなくちゃおかしい。知ってるよね。知ってるよね。
I desperately shook my head. A greasy sweat stood out on my forehead. All I could do for the time being as I wiped it was shake my head from side to side.
これ、あなたの部屋にあったのよ。あなたの部屋、ベッドの下、床に落ちてた。
Well, I mean, if it's under the bed, of course it's on the floor.
落ちてたの。落としたよね。それとも捨てた？とにかく落ちてた。落ちてたの。
You bitch. When the hell did she investigate my room on the day we first met? When I hurt my foot and she helped me up to my room, when she'd seen my figure of Sarah and her face had been shining and she'd called it cute?
この杭、外国製のすごく珍しい杭なのよ。それと、ニュージェネ第3の事件で使われた杭と同じ。同じなの。同じよね。同じなのは間違いない。同じよ。遺体を壁に貼り付けにした杭と同じ。
I was positive of it. She suspected me of being the new gen perpetrator. She convinced herself I was a murderer. Did she think she was some kind of detective? The high school girl detective Kusunoki Yua or something like that. Go die. I mean it, you deserve to die. It might have worked in an anime or a game. But Yua's reasoning was fatally mistaken. I knew the killer. I'd seen her with my own eyes, that demon. She was a girl whose name I didn't know, but she had worn the Suime uniform. The culprit was someone very near to me.
だから
Yua lowered her head and let out a small breath. Her grip on my wrist weakened, and at last she released me.
それ以上でもそれ以下でもないです。ただ、あなたが知ってるかどうかを確かめたかっただけ。本当はまだ言うつもりじゃなかったですし。
What the hell was yet supposed to mean here?
それじゃあ、もう一つ確認させてください。あなたには予知能力がありますか？
You know, and just on the off chance that it is actually something that is translated, let's pull up the glossary. Because I doubt it is, but you know, like I said, just to be on the safe side. Why me? Because I was gross? Because I didn't have any friends? Yua said nothing, only shook her head a little.
その画像はアットカフェルーム37の PC から拾ったんです。あなたの PC もできれば調べたかったんですけど、その機会はさすがにありませんでした。
Room 37, the room I always used. The bitch totally thought she was some kind of detective. Yua looked at me with only a faint trace of apology in her face. I felt that she'd returned to the usual Yua for a moment. Still wearing that expression, she began fishing around inside her bag again. This time, she brought out a printout and pushed it at me. I had a bad feeling about this. My reason warned me that it would be better not to look. But I had no choice but to look. I'd be falsely accused if I didn't find some way to resist.
それがあなたのすべてです。
My everything? Could she have stolen all my personal information? Was Yua a hacker? Heart pounding, I unfolded the printout. Contrary to my expectations, though, rather than my personal information, what was printed there looked like a backlog of an online chat.
Huh?
The participants in the chat were Nightheart and Shogun.
そのログ、変ですよね。
え
What was so strange about it? It was a normal log. I certainly remembered having this kind of conversation with Shogun.
ナイトハルトと将軍の発言時間が全然噛み合ってないんです。
Oh, yeah, she's got a point about that. Everything from Nightheart, at least for the most part, is on September 28th, which is a Sunday, while everything from Shogun is a Monday, the following day. Yeah, okay. She might be onto something. Could be interesting and worth looking into.
Oh.
Huh? What was this? Why did it end up like this?
そこにあるナイトハルトは西条区。発言時間は9月28日の午前3時だ。そして翌日、あなたはアットカフェに行ってます。西条くんがアットカフェに行くのは学校帰りと決まってる。そして学校に行くのは週に 2.5 回。あなたのクラスメートから聞いたんですけど、先週あなたが学校に来た日は月曜日、水曜日、木曜日。先週の月曜日は9月29日。将軍の発言時間と同じ日です。
Now that one I would say though is still a bit of a stretch.
No.
What? What was she saying?
ルーム37の PC のチャットログを調べさせてもらいました。そこから分かったことは、
Yua briefly cut herself off. Then, finally catching my gaze straight on, she gave voice to the relentless truth.
あなた一人の自作自演。将軍はあなた自身。
Oh, damn it. I really have to stop accidentally hitting the frickin' right mouse button. I was about to say race mouse button, but no, the right mouse button. I keep accidentally hitting it.
何も見たくない。何も聞きたくない。時間は一定じゃない。記憶には矛盾がある。視界にはエラーがある。地球は回ってない。これはきっとゲームなんだ。
I plugged in my PC while stuffing my face with pieces of fish sausage, and we are logging into Mindor's X.
僕じゃない。
Or starting it, because that's our OS. At last, my Sarah wallpaper appeared on the monitor.
僕がいるべき世界は。
I instantly started up Ensu without a second's hesitation.
ここじゃないんだ。
Okay. Beep, beep. Please hurry up and board the bus for the field trip. Nishijo Takumi lay sprawled on the tatami mat, or the tatami-covered floor with a colored pencil in his hand. It was yellow. The one he held several minutes before was red. He reclined on his sketchbook, almost covering it with his body, as he ran the pencil across it lightly. Takumi loved to draw. He loved it so much that even during school he was always doodling in the margins of his notebooks. The TV, which had been turned on even though no one was really watching it, was currently playing the morning news. To Takumi, who was still only in 4th grade, the news was nothing but boring stuff, so he didn't look at the screen. Beep, beep, 300 yen for candy. Who was drawing a yellow bus. He pretended he was the bus driver. The bus is full, so we're gonna take off. Beep. He brought imaginary scenes into reality through his drawings. He worked so energetically that there were many times when his lines went off the surface of his sketchbook onto the tatami. Yeah, we can kind of see that, it looks like. Each time, Nanami, who was reading manga nearby, became angry and grumbled, "Geez, you mustn't get it dirty," even though she was just his little sister. Unconcerned, Takumi continued immersing himself in his drawings. But when he reached the stage of drawing people in the windows of the bus, Takumi's hand stopped. And he deliberately tore apart the sketchbook. The day before the fall field trip. Takumi's parents had suddenly told him, "You can't go on the field trip." He was looking forward to it this whole time. He was overexcited since the morning, so much that his heart pounded and he wondered how soon it would be tomorrow. He simply couldn't bring himself to accept how his parents had callously sentenced him. Weeping, he insisted he would go no matter what, but it was futile. Regardless of what he said to them, his parents wouldn't listen, telling him only, "You can't," and "We're only looking out for your best interests," over and over. Burrowing into his bed, Takumi trembled with such frustration that it was as if he were about to rip the mattress to shreds. He loathed his parents from the bottom of his heart. At the time, a field trip had been a tremendous event for Takumi, one sufficient to induce this level of passion in him. Though everyone else in the class could go, he alone could not. From Takumi's point of view, it was all too unreasonable. Takumi's world was a lonely one. Their world was full of fun and passion. He almost had the sense that he was the only one to have been cut off from the rest of the world. He couldn't forgive his teacher, his classmates, everyone who had left him behind. Nor could he forgive his parents for their abrupt and unfair sentence. This began to transform into hatred towards his parents and classmates. Biting his lip hard enough to make it bleed, he continually repeated curse-like words to himself. None of you should be able to go. Next in the morning, the telephone had been ringing off the hook since the early morning. Each time his mother answered it, her response seemed more and more unsettled. In the end, Takumi couldn't get even a bit of sleep. It was a little past 9. Nanami sat on a cushion in a ladylike manner reading manga. The day before, she told Takumi, "Nana's gonna stay home from school too and be with her bro." And now she was there near him as if it were perfectly natural. Their father had already gone to work and was nowhere to be seen. Their mother was so busy answering the phone that she didn't have time to make breakfast. There was no need to go to school today. Still sulking, Takumi opened his sketchbook and began drawing to clear away his gloom. But his irritation wouldn't go away, and right when he tore up and flung his sketchbook away in annoyance,
あれこのバス
Nanami raised her voice in confusion. Takumi thought she was talking about the drawing he'd been working on, but her eyes were glued to the television.
ね
Nanami yelled for their mother, who was now responding to another phone call. Listening from beside her, Takumi absent-mindedly followed his sister's gaze to the TV screen. The screen showed the spectacle of a fallen highway overpass. Only an area of about 50 meters in size had collapsed. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I had to answer the phone. Okay, yeah, I already read that. Unfortunately, a single bus that had happened to be passing over that one spot became caught in it and lay toppled over sideways beneath the overpass. It was indeed the bus that Takumi was supposed to have ridden, the bus that all his classmates had been riding. A single glance was enough for him to imagine most of what had happened. His classmates were reflected on the screen. One was crying, one had his forehead covered in blood, one was being laid on a stretcher and carried off to an ambulance. A pale-faced reporter described the circumstances of the accident, but Takumi didn't really understand what he was saying. His mother stood stock still at the entrance to the room, face pale, still gripping the phone.
遠足のバスが高速道路で事故に遭っちゃったんだって。
それ今テレビでやってる。
それで斉藤先生が
is dead. For some reason, Takumi was certain of it. Everything being shown in the news right now bore a powerful resemblance to what he had envisioned in frustration and hated the previous night. In frustration and hate. I think that's supposed to be hatred. Although maybe that is actually how you spell hatred, I don't know. One thing alone resided in Takumi's heart. The peculiar conviction that he was the possessor of precognitive powers. An ESP investigation TV program had seen long ago was carved into Takumi's memory. The precog who appeared on that program had startled the contemporary world with his display of overwhelming supernatural abilities. In one test, 12 items were to be placed in boxes labeled from 1 to 12, and the precog was to sit in a different room with cards that had the items' names on them and predict which boxes they would be placed into. Only afterward would some staff members in a different room actually place the items in the boxes. When they tallied up the overlap between what was predicted and the box's actual contents, the precog's 90% success rate made the show's host go wild. And honestly, I feel as though that could easily be just all planned at the end of the day. But whatever. As he watched, Takumi played along by making predictions at the same time as the precog, with the result that he got every single one right. But of course, he didn't tell anybody about that. That was why now, too, he saw the accident on TV and thought to himself that his foresight had been correct.
クラスの半数以上の子が怪我したらしくて、はあ、なんてこと。
Takumi's mother began to embrace him, but he slipped out of her arm and crawled to another corner of the room.
でも、本当によかったわ。
His mother murmured emptily, her gaze swimming through the air.
今日、タクちゃんを休ませておいて、本当によかった。
Takumi felt like vomiting. Everything was rotten, he thought. So what if he had precognitive powers? It took a mere instant for his heart to freeze. For some time afterward, Takumi stopped speaking. He was literally mute. He wouldn't let a single word out in response to anyone. He became mute, his becoming mute worried his parents, who started becoming more and more overprotective. As they thus started to seem dumber and dumber to him, Takumi ended up deliberately playing the role of a wordless boy. It was his way of getting back at them, he thought. Noticing that he had stopped speaking, Takumi's mother took him to the psychiatric ward of a general hospital. He was diagnosed with PTSD. since he didn't actually have PTSD, of course, he didn't take a single dose of the medicine they gave him. He only pretended to take it. Takumi's parents didn't catch on to the fact that he was acting, and even when he saw them fretting about him and racking their heads over him, he didn't feel the least bit apologetic. And since the timer actually went off just a little while ago, I'm going to go ahead and cut this here. So let's go ahead and save. And as always, like, favorite, comment, subscribe, share, and I will see you guys next time. But until then, goodbye and farewell.